That was what was
Well,
going to happen.
I'm going to say it's really good to see you,
Yeah, it is.
and I hope you're doing well. I want to thank everybody for tuning in again to another deep dive here on Pelican Production Studios. We're here looking at two movies this week: the Time Machine 1960s version, and what is it, 2002 on the other one.
That's correct.
And these are two of my favorite movies.
Really?
And I, especially the 1960s Time Machine. When I was a kid, it would always be on TV. It would always be in the background or something. I would stumble upon it and I would just relive it over. I saw this movie so many times, and I was really, it's got a nostalgic. It has a nostalgic feel for me.
Oh, absolutely. There's one that was in the same year, a Verne movie that had that for me. But I always enjoyed the Time Machine. I had quibbles, you know me, but it was always fun to watch because Rod Taylor's just he's just so much fun. He was almost like the roles James Garner didn't get, Rod Taylor got, kind of thing. And it was a wonderful, it was a story that's not at all good for children to read.
He plays the
that
name.
Was made into a film that children could watch profitably.
His name is George, right?
What?
Rod Taylor's character's name is George in this, correct?
Yeah, remember the original time traveler has no name.
Right. So in the book, it's just he's called the time traveler.
Right. Never has a name. They don't even in the conversations he has with his friends, they never say his name. So it's kind of funny. But the film also, one of the things that I wanted to bring out, maybe this gets too deep too fast, but let's hold off on that thought then. Because the thing that I observed was, especially the second film made me think about this most, when Emma gets shot by the burglar, by the robber at the park.
Yeah.
And he uses the time machine to try to go back.
We're talking about the Time Machine 2002 with Guy Pearce now.
Right. And now he's dealing with the time travel paradox. And so he's going to go back in time. He's going to go earlier than, remember, he came to the park early. And so before he was late the first time he went there. So now he goes there the second time early. He drags her out of the park. They go and they just go anywhere. And she says, "Where's my flowers?" So he goes across to the flower shop where he meets Alan Young, who gets his cameo, who's the flower man. But before he can even buy anything, she gets run over by a cart and horse.
Yeah. So
this proves,
what you're saying.
This proves that time is immutable. This becomes a purely, perfectly, completely determinist universe. From beginning to end,
in the
everything
2002 version.
There's no multiverse here. There is no options here.
Only in that version.
That's correct. But that's kind of one of the implications of Wells' thing too, because in the original, because when he goes back, he doesn't attempt to fix anything.
No, but they don't leave it out. He does attempt to. He changes things because. Well, I mean, you could argue that it's determinist, but it doesn't. Nothing really points to it being determinist at all. There's no proof of the determinist within the 1960 version or the book. But
you think so?
It's someone preaching. I think personally, it's whoever is making whoever wrote this script for the Time Machine 2002 version is preaching that it's determined or deciding that they can't change. That if your time is up, then it's your time,
And the way this works out is that when you watch him go through time periods, his presence in those periods as they are fixes them just as much as him going back trying to change that New Year's Eve with Emma. He couldn't change that either. But once he went through them, they became locked in. Now there's no stochastic process. Now there is a future, and it's going to happen. No matter what else nothing else is going to matter. People will appear to have free choice and free will, but it's the Calvinist idea that everything's all predetermined anyway, and you just think you have free will.
Right.
And
So I think that the 1960s version alludes to the idea that time can be changed because he changes it by destroying that in the future by by bringing the end of the Morlocks and then going back right. He actually changed it in a sense because he moved the time machine to a different spot and comes back
right.
right to the. So in a way, he's changing at least himself within the space. He's changing who he is within time.
Well, think about this. He does, yes, he does move about in time, but if I can bring in one other reference, it was not really well explained in Endgame, Avengers Endgame. But remember how Dr. Bannon tried to explain to the other guys how all of this time travel was working and what was fixed and what was not. So that in the course of the original, his timeline wandered among time frames, but was linear. It was jumpy, like Billy Pilgrim's in Slaughterhouse 5, but it was his timeline. And he never occupied the same time space twice in that version. He was always in the one every time space he was in there once. And that's the key to avoiding the time paradox. And particularly because he never went back to a time before. So as I say, he never went back to a time before he ever first used the time machine. He didn't go back into the past, if you will. So with that state, though they fudged it a bit because him going back and forth in the machine might have consequences for times out exterior.
Well, they're trying to. Whenever they do time movies, and here's what I've noticed: is they can easily be destroyed if you pick them apart because you have to make some decisions to make it simplified. For instance, in Frequency, which which is Jim Caviezel and Dennis Quaid, and
another one of your favorite movies.
There's these two timelines that they focus on instead of if you really think about it, there are a lot of different strings going on, but they simplify it so that you only have to think about two different memories that he's thinking of and having at the exact same time. But if that, and that's certainly, I'm not subscribing to string theory here, but I do think that time can be changed. And as an Orthodox Christian, I believe that Christ, through his incarnation, has changed time backwards and forwards and is renewing all time and space. And so the true time travelers, if there is such a thing, would be the saints. And Christ.
Well, and in fact, I think we have evidence of that. But the interesting that raised the other interesting part that I was speculating about while I was walking around the lake thinking about this was that the issue becomes then in some way, the time traveler somehow contains all time and space within his bubble as he moves. Mm-hmm. And that's a God position. So he becomes God for the time period he's activated the machine. And under those circumstances, he can change time and space because time and space will become obedient to whatever happens within the bubble.
Right.
So, and that to me is consistent with Orthodox theology about the incarnation of a eternal spiritual person taking on a temporal material body and a temporal nature. The two seems impossible, but that's why it works because, as I think Tertullian said. But in the first movie, what I was saying was that there was no strict determinism in it. Free will was not an illusion at any point in the first version. He was always free to act because his actions were never constrained by being in a situation where things were already determined. Right. He was in time spaces where he had not entered in, and so those hadn't happened yet. So, and even when he comes back to the laboratory. He comes back to after he had left it. He stops before he left. He gets his 3 books and he takes off again.
Right. And
And
there's
he
him
goes to a
changing
time,
the future again by taking books to the future.
true, but he's taking them to a time where he hasn't been yet. So he is never remember again, the paradox occurs.
No, in the 60s, he goes back to the exact same time because when they dragged his machine into the building,
Right.
he dragged it back to its original spot, which is where
Right,
she
outside.
was. That's where the girl's standing outside in the future, outside the door.
But he only has to go to a moment after the moment he left.
It wouldn't matter what, yeah, and it wouldn't even matter if just right as the doors close. If he goes back to the exact same time, the doors are closed, and she's outside.
Right. He just has to not be in the same time space twice. That's all.
Right. So he just moved the machine.
So that's why. So I'm saying there was freer epistemological room to move in the first movie than in the second. The second was, I thought, took it one step too far with making the actions of the act of the moving the time machine to actually fix time and space. So that muddled the whole free will determinist argument into the narrative, and I don't know if it threw many people out, but it would throw me out, because that's a large number of the things I think about are the questions of free will and determinism. So it really made it difficult for me. But that said, I actually preferred the second version cinematically. It's a better film, in my humble opinion.
It's made so many years so many years later.
Technologically, it's better. I loved actually the architecture of the Eloi civilization. I thought that was fantastic. It almost made me think Avatar must have gotten into it.
So we have a big difference here in the book in the 60s version versus the modern 2002 version.
Certainly.
And what we see also here is a difference with the where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought. Go ahead, and if you had something, I forgot what I was saying.
In terms of that civilization I mentioned earlier, the Eloi in the second version appeared to have more nous than they did in the first.
Oh, I remember what I remember what I was going to say. So, in the book and in the old 1960 version, the races are definitely just split into 2 races.
Right.
There's the above race and the down below race. They're both human, and one devolves into into eating people and maintaining the machinery and stuff, and the other ones kind of devolve into just having everything done for them, and then they just live and die, basically. But in the 2002 version, there's this manipulation of the genome with the underground folks who split the race, and so you really don't have just 2; you have 3 races in the.
More than that, the Morlocks have divided themselves into all kinds of breeds.
Much as in the future one. In the future one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they've got smart ones, they got stupid ones, they got skilled ones, they got ones that actually function like dogs.
So they mutated into like a class system underneath.
Right, but the classes are different, actually, somewhat to nature. They've been bred like Watson, my dog here, is different from the Chihuahua. It's the same kind of thing they've done there at the Morlocks, whereas the Eloi are still. And it's amazing to me that they would be, after 800,000 years, I mean, basically year 2000, nice-looking California humans. You know, I mean, it's that was remarkable. That was one issue that I always had with the book, was like, why are these people looking so normal? Why are they speaking English? Isn't it been a long time? I mean, we don't speak the same English they spoke in 1850. So,
that was good what they did then. And the other thing I kind of liked was, so in the 60s version, and they're like this pure white kind of, Anglo-Saxon version of the future. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
actually.
but it doesn't make any sense, because even if you think of the Tower of Babel and you think of all of the races coming together and the look, that how they would look, it's probably more along the lines of the second movie in
Yeah.
2002, where they had kind of like this, like you could tell they had it almost as if they had all the races mixed in, at least the way they depict them. And they're definitely not as primitive as I kind of liked it. I kind of liked the change a little bit in the second movie in
I
that
liked it,
respect.
but it does, but it argues, it militates against the idea that they're just sheep, and why would they accept it? That he has to ask the question.
They actually don't accept it, and you see that in the future version they do this projection of thought, and they use manipulative means in order to mentally uh, overlord over them on the surface, and so they just take them.
Got it. That's true.
Yeah.
The Uber Morlock does kind of the dream walker thing that Robert Jordan picked up.
Yeah.
The question is, of course, the other thing is that it appears that there are other Uber Morlocks, other colonies. This is, you remember he said, I'm just one of them.
Right, and so they're like almost like silos or something that are underground,
Right, and this has popped up all over the place, and one of the things that makes the 2002 version work better than the 60 version is that notion that there is this variation, that there would be multiple societies that all evolved this way. I don't think that's where I was going with that thought, actually. You're gonna have to pick it up, because now I've lost it. This is a hard movie, really, to pin down for me.
Well, I get what you're saying, because we have this 1960, in the 1960 time travel. The philosophy here is the linear exploratory time travel.
Right.
Okay, it presents like the future as a passive consequence of the present. Right, and in 2002, it introduces a different thing. It's more like a temporal paradox. Why can't I change the past? This fixed point theory, exploring this destiny versus the casualty, or not casualty, causality is what I meant to say. More directly, explores like destiny versus causality.
Well, that is the important distinction, because in a sense, when we look even at our Lord's incarnation, and we went back to that for a second, he released all of the souls from Hades in our theology. But strictly speaking, what he did was sanctify the world of its sins at that time by his crucifixion and resurrection. But strictly speaking, board was a board. Saul still died on Mount Gilboa. Moses still parted the Red Sea.
Right, some things can't be
changed. Still saw Bathsheba on the rooftop. All that stuff happened and had its original significance and was unchanged, except to the extent that it was now understandable in the completion of God's plan. And so, in those terms, the time machine in the 1960s, and in fact in 2002 as well, is perfectly consistent theologically with Christian understanding of the world.
Right. In the 60s is more of a binary good versus evil.
Yeah.
And the other one is kind of more to the idea of a socio-political allegory. And
to that extent, that's why I say I think it's superior, because there was meaning for each of them. They had purpose. Even the Morlocks had purpose now. I could never in the original understand how these beasts could operate machinery. They didn't even have what sounded like a language. They didn't have any organization. They didn't have any they weren't even as organized as a pack of wolves.
I felt like they were just using the machinery that was left over.
But that's going to die. Machinery's going to die.
They didn't know how to fix the machinery in the Matrix either. They didn't even know what it was made, who made it, or how to fix it or anything. Like if it stopped, They wouldn't be able to sustain themselves down in the, you know.
Oh yeah,
He
humans might.
he
Fine.
takes
I
him
thought
down. He takes Neo
computers
down
could.
to the bottom. He goes, "See this right here? It has something to do with producing air. I have no idea how it works." So there's this idea that the machines could be just had been going for a very long time when they went underground, because it,
Oh,
if you remember, they
I
were
like that.
listening to the rings, and the rings kind of told the history a little bit, and
Right,
they were down in bunkers as regular humans at first.
right. And just the force of situations, because 800,000 years is plenty of time for mutation to take place.
I hear you, but and yeah, they didn't really have the capability or the people. Like, if you remember that movie, uh, what's that movie that Leslie Nielsen's in? I love that movie. It's an old,
Oh,
uh,
Fantastic Planet. I just
yeah,
thought of
yeah,
that too.
yeah. Because
Krill
look at
technology.
how they made the technology look for the time that they made the movie, and
Mhm.
the effect of creating this very large understanding of the mechanisms and things that were left over by the the people from before.
Right.
And in this case, they didn't really do a good job in the 60s version of letting us know how that all works underneath the ground. It's very,
The- And I
there's not
was
a lot of support.
one other thing I noticed. This is at first it struck me that it was just like a stupid trivial fact. Now it starts to have some meaning. Fantastic Planet was released in 1952.
What a great movie.
Or Forbidden Planet, excuse me. Fantastic Planet's a different movie. That's the French movie. 2001: A Space Odyssey was released in 1968. So the time machine is exactly between them. It's 8 years after the first one and 8 years before the next one, and it's inferior technologically, cinematically to both. This was an effort that MGM, who produced all three movies, failed to fund the way they funded the other two. The funding for Forbidden Planet was through the roof for that time for a project of that kind, and that
I see.
remains the greatest 1950s sci-fi movie that ever was made. And there's never going to be a film to top it. Partly because it's Shakespeare's Tempest, for one thing, but the everything about it was superior to everything else that was around it, including them and the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms were great movies. They just didn't reach the sublimity of Forbidden Planet. And of course, 2001 is
Yeah.
the metaphysical
And I have to
maze, right?
say, it has to do with the matte painting work.
Yeah, that's true. The matte paintings were just insanely good. That
So
was Disney quality.
yeah. So you go in there and you're walking through these gigantic places. It really sets you in the thing. They could have done the same thing if they had some really good. They needed. It was too confined underneath the ground.
They
It
did,
was
yeah,
too,
they
and
didn't.
it
Yeah,
doesn't look in the. I'm talking about the 1960s version now.
that's
It's
exactly
like
how I am too. I am
the
too.
the amount of infrastructure that is alluded to, it seems very meager.
And actually, that's true also of the 2002. I didn't get a real spacious
Well,
feeling. I got less confined feeling, but still cramped and claustrophobic.
but
Maybe
look, you
that's
saw all the
defensible.
veins. You saw how they were real far away from it at the end of it, and they're showing all of the whole thing get eaten up in like all the veins. That they were like really high up,
That's
looking
true. I
down
saw
on
that.
it.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's a
true.
lot bigger than the other. And if it was just one, like you said, they said there were more of them.
Yep.
So that's
And
just one.
and of course, the chase scene where they're running away from the hunter Morlocks, trying to get up the wall, that was quite a long run, also. So
That actually, you could do a spin-off of the second movie
yeah, you could. But that's what I'm
where
saying. That
they approach another one of these things, and they've like they've gotten more advanced, and like now they're trying to spread out, but then they found more of these underground things.
and they start freeing the Eloi around the world start getting freed by this. It's kind of like what other film that reminds me of is Independence Day. Remember where they say now we know how to get these things. Remember, because he flies right up into the cannon and blows it up from inside.
Right.
So it's that kind of narrative element where they just one by one they pick off the bad colonies. Um, the I think it's, when we look at it though in different terms, it just seems that that's such an awful future to contemplate, that 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 we would all be reduced to such
I liked the
almost
idea
substandard
of the
levels.
I liked what they did with the moon, how the moon got broken up, and just our hubris. We go out there, we think we can do, and then we blew up the moon because we're so dumb. I thought that was.
Oh, I like,
I could see us doing something stupid like that.
and was for a stupid reason, so they could build a vacation park.
Yeah.
And this really high class development with what you were going to golf and hit 1,500-yard drives, and won't that be great? Because now it'll be underneath the moon. It'll be great, right?
Except we can agree that there is an anti-war, Cold War fears. There's a hopeful ending to rebuild civilization with books. This message of enlightenment and peace can win in the 60s version. And then in the 2000 version, we have fatalist. It's like fatalistic. Some events can't be changed. There's more emotion and action oriented. Well, maybe they can escape.
I think there was on that basis, there was equal levels of action. What you just made a key point, and I'd forgotten to bring it up. Vox, remember the Vox in the second version? He's still working. Remember, Kalen brings him down and shows him the Mountain of the Ghosts, and so they could all go down there, and Vox could teach them all of this stuff. He still remembers, and remember at the very end, there's
that's like bringing the books back. I think that's like bringing the books back to the future, because it was part of the librbrary. He was part of the library. It's kind of like an AI or whatever.
And I think I know which books I'd bring, but I'm pretty sure one I would bring Herbert George would never have brought, but that's the difference. That's true. So, but the deal that you mentioned that interest, that was interesting to me. The whole having them have that nuclear war in the 60s, in 1966, which would be 6 years after the movies. There's people are sitting in the cinema in December of 1960 watching a movie that says we're going to end the world. We're all going to end the world in 6 years. So eat, drink, and be merry. That's quite a thing to say to kids, right? But and then in the other one in 2037, conveniently 35 years after the film, we're going to blow up the moon, and then that's going to end the world. So party hardy, Marty. But the deal
fucking movie's like you got to accept loss, and then you got to find your purpose in the future.
Sure, but I don't recall in the book. Was there such an incident in the book that he said, "Oh, we blew everything up, and that's what happened," or was it just that
society nuclear? It's the nuclear proliferation situation.
He wouldn't have known about that, would he?
Yeah.
Wells would?
I don't think they even talk about it.
They didn't really understand
some kind of destruction. It's just war and destruction
at that point.
Just war and destruction.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, fine. I mean, so it's all place all the time is what he's thinking, maybe, or Franco-Prussian War. That would be current to him, or the Boer War, because he wrote it. He published it in 1895, right? So the Franco-Prussian. Franco-Prussian War was the most recent one. There was the kerfuffle in Sudan that he would have known about.
He travels to the year 802,701 AD.
Yeah.
In the book. They don't really. It doesn't. It just kind of we go. What I recall is it just goes right past, like world wars, and just destruction and everything, and then just kind of skips over it, because he's like stuck inside the rock, and then it comes back out, and he's in the year 800,000. It's after all of that.
Somehow he gets knocked out. In the second one,
because it's only 4-hour read, I mean, it's not like you can really put that much in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. I was just that it's strict narratively, there is over that kind of time frame, not the only thing you need Cataclysm for is to get him to supercharge the thing so it's going so fast that it like not that he loses consciousness, and by the time he wakes up he stops it and goes, oh, look where I am. So that too much time passes, if you will, because there's no reason to think that if he'd have stopped at 503 612 that it wouldn't have been something similar with different specifics, but kind of around 740, like in the Wheel of Time, endless cycles of the same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
Where you have the same 3,000-year cycle of human stupidity, starting beautifully, growing wonderfully, getting decadent, destroying yourselves, reducing it all to ruin, go back, start over again. I mean, that's that kind of cyclical history would have been.
You know what it was? It was a dying sun. That's what it was.
Oh, very good.
That's what they had, a dying sun.
But that was when he went completely into the future, millions of years into the future.
No, but that's what's
it?
in the book is a dying sun.
Yeah.
You're wondering what it was. That was like the thing that was like messed up everything.
Because at the end everything goes cold and he just dies, and there's just nothingness at the end in the book. It's
in the distant future or whatever.
Right. Because not to ruin everybody's day, but Wino does not do well when he tries to kill the first round of Morlocks.
Right.
And Mara is just the 2002. I don't know why I think they might have changed the name because the name Wina wasn't resonant. It would have been misinterpreted in 2002, where nobody was thinking that way in 1960 yet. So they just changed the name to make it euphonious for their ears. But
right.
As
so,
far as
go ahead.
As far as the performances and all that, I liked both actors. I never get the feeling that I'm actually watching the real Guy Pearce. I always feel like I'm looking at him through a dim glass, and I'm wondering what's going on inside that head. He seems opaque to me. It was true in Memento. It was certainly true in LA Confidential, and it was true here also.
Sometimes he doesn't have the juice, and sometimes he does. I think he.
Well, no, not saying he doesn't have the juice. I'm saying his acting style comes across as foggy to me.
Oh,
he looks like he seems like
always like up in his. I think he's trying to depict himself always up in his head thinking.
That's right. And where Rod Taylor, of course, was more a man of action, he was more kind of.
Don't you see that William Shatner reference that I said, like how similar they are as for when they were young?
Yeah, and well, Shatner, I think,
he looks like
only a few years younger.
You know who he looks like? He looks like Robin Williams.
Who does? Rod Taylor?
Yeah, he does. He looks like a young Robin Williams. Go look at Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society, and then look at Rod Taylor.
No, I just saw that picture. I just saw the picture, him posed with all the boys. I just saw that yesterday. So I know I got it right in my mind's eye.
He looks a lot like him. You don't think so?
It's not a comparison I would have made naturally, but I mean, they both because first off, I think that Rod has a somewhat longer face than Robin does.
Right.
Robin's face is a little more like mine, a little rounder, and also, and I think that though they both will put up the picture of Rod's, where you right now you have the 2002 poster up. Put up the 60 poster because that has a real good picture of Rod. And you're showing
Look, he looks like Robin Williams right there. It looks like a young Robin Williams.
Yeah, he does. Actually, he could pass for Mork, couldn't he?
That's crazy.
It looks like Robin is Mork, doesn't it?
Amazing.
So, but it's and of course, the other great role he had was in The Birds, playing very much a similar character. Does well with that. But it was again a man of action, as you say, as opposed to the man of necessarily intellect. It might be a little difficult to credit that the Rod Taylor person could invent a time machine. He looks like the guy who stumbled on the invention and accidentally kicked it into the future, and now he's got the time tunnel problem, right?
So, the girl Weena in the book, she dies.
Yes, in a forest fire.
That's right. And,
that's what I meant about her not doing well.
It's like a relationship. It's like a, protective. It's more protective than it is romantic. But in the film, in the 60s film, it becomes the love interest. And then he saves her and returns to stay with her.
That's right? The classic Christian redemptive arc. That's why I say.
There is no Weena in the 2002 version. It's replaced by the girl named Mara.
But it's still the same arc.
Fully fleshed out character. He's Alexander's the name of it's not Alexander's the name of the main character that
you can give the time traveler any name you want. Doesn't matter.
And he stays with the girl with this Mara after he destroys this. So he never goes back to tell his
well, he's destroyed the machine. He can't go anywhere. I mean, I guess he could try and reformulate it. I mean, it looks like it's steampunk construction, so it should be something. But he'd have to. He had the opportunity for all kinds of metallurgy and fiber and optics in 1899.
You're paused here. I lost you.
Are we dead?
No, you're back.
You go. Wow, that was crazy.
What were you saying?
I was saying that the way he escapes the Morlocks in the second movie is he puts the time travel on overload and blows it, and in a time paradox, it blows the whole place up because it creates all times at once in one place, and that kills everything.
It's cool. And it makes
to infinity.
It makes a good boss level destroy. Get the main boss guy at the end.
So he can't go anywhere. But he wasn't. But really, he wasn't really intending, because he comes back. He escapes the Uber Morlock, but then comes back and rescues her. They run away. They get out. And so he always decided that when he decides to go back, I'm frozen again. There I am. He decides to go back. He's going to stay there with her, and and they're going to be Adam and Eve again, or maybe Seth and whatever Seth's wife's name. It's in the Book of Jubilees. I don't have that ready to hand here, but they're going to help lead the Eloi back to full humanity, which they have every capacity of doing. Obviously, the film sets them all up as proto-humans. Like they're in the Garden of Eden, and they've got to now walk out into the world, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think
so. Then that works.
So
it's consistent too, narrative.
Yeah. So I think the Wells book, is basically a philosophical exploration of time, decay, class, and evolution. The 1960s film, keeps kind of this general spirit, but simplifies the themes for emotional clarity and like this Cold War relevance. And in 2002, the film kind of reimagines the plot entirely, focusing on like personal loss, time paradoxes, and lots of CGI heavy action.
But again, the two film versions both have the element of redemption, which the book utterly lacks.
Yeah, I agree.
And so they've both been, if you will, Disneyfied. I guess that's the Disneyfication of a source. I mean, if you ever read the actual Cinderella story,
and
then the one that is not the one Disney made.
Well, I have
it's a rough story, baby.
Let's wrap it up here, and I do have first of all, I like both the films. I give the '60s film I give it like an 8. I give uh, I give I give them both. They're both like in. I give like an 8.5 to the other film. It's not like super great. Didn't blow my socks off, but I enjoyed the experience of both these movies.
Yeah, it's about the same for me. I was
And
pleasantly surprised by the newer one.
and I have a suggestion for our next movie.
Okay.
What do you think of uh there we do I like this comparison thing we got going on. What if we do the Richard Chamberlain version of
Shogun?
no, the
Three
Richard Chamberlain
Musketeers?
version of the Count of Monte Cristo, and then
Oh, okay.
the Caviezel version.
Oh, excellent. Okay, that'll be
Because
great.
Guy Pearce is in that too.
What's he play, Aramis?
He plays
Oh, no. The Three Musketeers don't come into the
I
count,
think
do
he
they?
plays the Baron or
Deef?
the one that basically the one that marries the girl that
Oh, he plays a bad guy for a change.
yeah, he plays the bad guy. He's the bad guy in this
Cool.
one, but he's like best friends with him. So that should be a fun comparison. But so Count of Monte Cristo, Richard Chamberlain TV movie versus the theatrical release of Caviezel, and then there's the book. We'll reference the book a little bit and kind of see which one. Dumas is obviously a much bigger
That's a monster book.
literary monster.
Yeah, that's a door. Hold your door open level of book right there.
But there are some significant differences between those two movies and the book as far as what they decided to do. So I think that would be a great deep dive for us.
That'll be fine. That'll be because it's also I was thinking of the Three Musketeers, but that's in a sense too lighthearted in any version. Really, that's like, well, at some point maybe we want to get into the really classic ones like this, like the what's the Errol Flynn films, right? Captain Blood and stuff like. Count Monte Cristo is a neat dark film. So neat dark concept. Really explores how Dumas despised French nobility and on all that.
Well, plus there's a great, God-centered theme through the whole thing.
Certainly is. Absolutely.
It'll be interesting to kind of parse through the differences between those different standpoints. But thanks everybody for tuning in. If you stayed this long, then you really got problems. But we appreciate it and we thank you anyway. You leave a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed our content, and we'll be reading your comments down below.
Okay. You guys.
Thanks a lot, everyone.